Hello class, welcome to Empowerment Technologies. In this video, we're going to learn how to perform absolute and relative cell referencing. So let us define and differentiate what is absolute and relative cell referencing. So when we say relative reference in Excel, it is a cell address without the $sign in the row and the column coordinates. So how do we know the coordinates? So for example, we select C19. So our coordinates is C19. So because we have column C, we are at column C and then in row 19. So basically, the row and column coordinates give us the cell name. So C19. So when a formula with relative cell references is copied to another cell, the reference changes based on a relative position of rows and columns. So let us first relatively reference E20 to F20. So for example, we suppose that F20 is equal to whatever is the value of E20. So here our row and column coordinates is E20. So this is our referenced cell. So this is our reference E20. And we know that this is relatively referenced because we did not include $sign. So now that we reference E20, we'll now show that the value on F20 is based on the value of E20. So we mentioned here that when a formula, so here we have here a formula which is E is equal to E20. So when a formula with a relative cell references is copied to another cell, the reference changes based on a relative position of rows and columns. So for example, we copied this formula. So E20, we copied this formula to F21. So the cell reference will also change based on a relative position. So we copied the formula one row below this cell. So one row below F20. So our cell reference here is E20. So one row below E20 is E21. So meaning our formula here or our cell reference here will become E21. So automatic if it is relatively referenced. So let's say we in J21. So here we have here I20 and then I21. So I20. So let's say for example that in J21 we relatively referenced I20. So meaning J21 is equal to whatever value is entered in I20. So J21 will now become will be equal to J. It will be equal to 20 because we reference I20 to get this value. So if we copy this one row below, so if we copy this to J22, the value should be 30. So the value should be whatever is the value in I21. Because we move this one row below, then the reference will also be one row below our original reference. On the other hand, absolute reference in Excel refers to reference that is locked so that the rows and columns won't change when copied. So unlike a relative cell reference, an absolute reference refers to an actual fixed location on a worksheet. So to do an absolute cell referencing, add $sign to either or both the columns and rows of the cell name to reference. So for example, you would like to absolutely reference E27. So for example, so let's write here what we want to do. So absolute reference E27. So suppose we want to do this. So this is E27. So as indicated by the number box, by the name box. So this is E27. So we would like this one and this one to have the same value as E27. So what we need to do is place the formula or enter the formula equal sign and then select our cell reference, which is E27, and then enter. So here, this is still relatively reference. So to absolutely reference, we need to add the dollar sign. So beside either of the column or the row. So since we want the value to be equal to 20 to whatever values in E27. So let's just absolute reference both the rows and the columns. So we need to place here dollar sign followed by the name of the column, and then dollar sign followed by the name of the row. So dollar sign E, dollar sign 27, and then enter. So if we copy this one to this cell, then the reference of this one is the same as this. So here our reference is E27. So here the reference is still E27 because our reference is fixed. So not changing. So if we copy this again to other part of our Excel file, the reference is still the same. So E27. So unlike here, so if we move this, if we copy the formula here, this will change. The value or the cell reference will change relative to the position. So if we place here, so since nag-move tayo dito, we move here one row below. So the cell reference for this one will become E22. So since we don't have any value in E22, then this did not return a value. So 0 or no value. Or if we place here 16 for example, then this will automatically reference the cell. So here I have an example. So for example, we would like to solve for the total gross income and the total net income of the following tutors. So we have here 6 tutors, and these are their income for the months of January to June. And these are also their professional tax rate. So this tax rate is the same for all of these tutors. So we would like to know the total gross income. So the total gross income is equal to the sum of the income from January to June. So by applying what we learned in our previous discussion, which is basic operation, and arithmetic operation, so we can calculate for the value of the total gross income. So equals, and then select the cells to add. So we have here E6 plus F6 plus G6 plus H6 plus I6 plus J6. So here we relatively referenced our cells. So cells E6 to J6 are relatively referenced. So we don't need to indicate here a dollar sign. So because if we copied this, if we copy the formula to the cells below it, the reference must also move to the row below our original cell references. So here our original cell reference are row 6 and then columns E to J. So here we need to move our row to row 7 and columns E to J. So if we copy this one, the cell references must also change because we do relative cell referencing. So if we copy the formula, just drag the fill handle. So here if we inspect the cell references, here we have E7, F7, G7, H7, and I7 and J7. So the row changes based on our cell references. So here our first references are row 6 and columns E to J. And then here we have here row 8. So here we have row 9. Here we have row 10. And here we have row 11. So as you can see, the value depends on the value that are entered in our reference cells. So let us now solve for the total net income. So to get the total net income, what we need to do is use this equation. So gross minus gross times the tax rate. So we need to use this to get the total net income. So gross minus the tax rate. So here, we indicate here our tax rate. So we have here 10%. So this is true to all our tutors. So we apply now here our formula. So we have here gross income. So here is our gross income. And then minus, and then open parenthesis, gross income again, multiplied by the value in our tax rate, so the professional tax rate. So enter. So now we get this value. This is the total net income for Hatake Kakashi. However, the gross income for the following teachers may not be the same as the gross income for Hatay Kakashi. So therefore, we need to relatively reference the gross income. So I have here gross income and then another gross income. So we don't need to include here the dollar sign. However, sabi natin, so we mentioned that the professional tax rate is the same. So this is true to all the other tutors. So meaning, we need to multiply their gross income by 10%. So since we have here the value in E3, so the same value to be multiplied to their gross income, so we can just absolutely reference E3 to avoid redundancy. So include dollar sign, and then dollar sign to the column, and then dollar sign to the row reference. So if we copy this one, so this will now multiply the gross income to whatever is the value in E3. So here we have, if we inspect, we have here the references here, the cell references move to K7, and then the tax rate is still on E3. So the same with the other. So here, for example, K9 and then E3. So that is all for absolute and relative referencing. So I hope you learned something in this video. So next time, in our next video, we're going to learn how to perform basic functions, intermediate functions, and other advanced functions in Microsoft Excel. So see you in our next video.